Have you ever witnessed a powerful CEO literally fall to his knees in front of the daughter he once slapped? 3 weeks before the most important announcement of my career, my father struck me across the face at our family Thanksgiving dinner. Not a gentle reprimand, a full force slap that left my cheek burning and 32 relatives frozen in shock. His reason? I refused to sign my name on architectural plans my brother had stolen from me. But what my father didn't know was that his granddaughter Emma had been recording everything on his own tablet. And 3 weeks later, at the Morrison Tech Campus Partnership announcement with 500 tech executives watching, those 5 words she spoke into the microphone didn't just expose his theft, they destroyed his entire empire in less than 30 seconds. I'm Frida Enders, 38 years old, and this is the story of how my family's golden reputation crumbled when the truth finally came to light. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. For 15 years, I worked as an architect in Seattle, yet my family never once asked about my projects. Not when I graduated from MIT with honors, not when I won the Pacific Northwest Design Award, not even when my work appeared in Architectural Digest, though they never knew that was me. You see, in the Enders family, there was only one architect worth mentioning, my brother Marcus, vice president of our father's company, Enders Development Group. 4,000 employees, a gleaming tower in downtown Seattle, and a CEO who commanded every room he entered. That was Robert Enders, my father. At family dinners, the conversation always followed the same script. Dad would praise Marcus's latest innovative project, while Marcus's wife Sarah would beam and add details about their new vacation home or boat. Meanwhile, I'd sit quietly with Emma, cutting her food and making sure she ate her vegetables, while the conversation flowed around us like we were furniture. "Frida, sweetheart," my Aunt Patricia said at last Easter's dinner, "you're so good with Emma. That's what really matters, being a good mother. Not everyone needs to chase big careers." What they didn't know, what I'd never told anyone in my family, was that I'd founded Frida Studio 5 years ago. 25 employees, an office in Belltown, and a portfolio of sustainable designs that had caught the attention of some very important people. But every time I thought about mentioning it, I'd hear my father's voice from when I was 23. "Frida, you're too soft for the business world. Leave the empire building to Marcus." So I did. At least, that's what they all believed. The stealing started small, almost innocent. In 2019, Marcus called me late one Sunday night. "Hey, sis, I'm in a bind. Dad wants to see preliminary sketches for the Seattle Public Library renovation tomorrow. Can you help me brainstorm? I just need a fresh perspective." I spent 4 hours on video call, sketching out an eco-integrated design with natural light chambers and living walls. Marcus took notes, thanked me profusely, and promised to credit me as a consultant. 6 months later, I saw my exact design in the Seattle Times under the headline, "Marcus Enders Revolutionizes Public Space with Groundbreaking Green Design." The second time was 2021. "Family helps family," Marcus said, showing up at my apartment with coffee and pastries. "The Bellevue Mixed-Use Development. Dad's breathing down my neck. You always had the best spatial sense." I redesigned his entire concept, turning a boring strip mall into a multi-level community hub with rooftop gardens. The project won 3 awards. My name appeared nowhere. By 2023, he didn't even pretend anymore. He simply forwarded me his waterfront project with a note. "Need this fixed by Monday, thanks." And like an idiot, I fixed it. Because that's what the invisible daughter does. She helps, she stays quiet, she doesn't make waves. Emma watched all of this with her sharp 12-year-old eyes. "Mom," she asked one evening as I worked on Marcus's latest problem, "why does Uncle Marcus always get credit for your ideas?" I looked at my daughter, brilliant, brave, everything I wasn't at her age, and said, "Sometimes keeping peace is more important than getting credit." She frowned. "That doesn't sound right." It wasn't, but I didn't know that yet. Emma had always been different from the other Enders children, Marcus's boys who roughhoused and broke things, Cousin Patricia's daughters who cared only about Instagram followers. My daughter observed everything with those thoughtful brown eyes, processing the world like a computer analyzing code. She'd discovered something interesting about her grandfather's tablet last summer. Robert always left it lying around during family gatherings, logged into everything because, as he'd say, "Who's going to steal from me in my own house?" Emma would sit quietly in the corner, supposedly playing games, but I'd noticed her fingers moving with too much purpose across the screen. "Grandpa lets me use his tablet because I'm the only grandchild with a brain," Emma told me once, repeating Robert's words with a slight eye roll. "He actually said that, Mom, in front of Tommy and Jake." I should have paid more attention to what she was doing with that tablet. Should have realized my daughter had inherited more than just my architectural eye. She'd gotten the strategic mind I'd never developed. One evening in October, I found her transferring files to a USB drive. "Research project," she said quickly, closing the laptop. "About sustainable architecture. For school." "Need help?" I offered. "No, I've got everything I need." She paused, then added, "Mom, did you know Grandpa's tablet automatically backs up all his emails? And Uncle Marcus's too, since they're on the same corporate account?" I was distracted, working on a deadline. "That's nice, honey." She gave me a look I didn't understand then, disappointment mixed with determination. "Someday you're going to need proof, Mom, and when you do, I'll have it." I thought she was being dramatic. 12-year-olds often are. I had no idea she was preparing for war. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, or had someone take credit for your hard work, hit that subscribe button right now. I promise you, what happens next will show you exactly how to reclaim your power. And please share this with someone who needs to hear that their day of recognition is coming. Let's continue. September 15th changed everything. I was in my Belltown office, reviewing blueprints with my team, when the email arrived. The sender made me check twice. David Morrison, CEO of Morrison Technologies. "Dear Ms. Enders, your firm has been selected as one of 3 finalists for the Morrison Tech Campus project. Please prepare a comprehensive presentation for our board by November 20th. My hands shook as I read the details. 500,000 square feet. 10,000 employees, a sustainable campus that would redefine Seattle's tech landscape. The contract value, $45 million, with a 6-month deadline for the master plan. "Holy shit," my lead designer whispered, reading over my shoulder. "They only invited 3 firms, AECOM from New York, Stellar from LA, and us?" I scrolled down to see the list of firms that hadn't made the cut. There, at number 37 of 47 rejected proposals, Enders Development Group, my father's company hadn't even made it past the first round. "We need everyone on this," I told my team. 18-hour days if necessary. This is our shot at the major leagues. The stakes couldn't be higher. I'd invested $500,000 of my personal savings into this presentation. If we lost, I'd have to close the studio. But if we won, "Your vision aligns perfectly with our sustainability goals," Morrison had written in a personal note at the bottom. "We're particularly impressed by your innovative approach to work-life integration in architectural design." The presentation date was November 28th, Thanksgiving Day. The same day, my family always gathered at my father's Mercer Island estate for our annual celebration of his success. This year would be different. I just didn't know how different. The next 2 months disappeared in a blur of drafts, models, and calculations. My team worked like their lives depended on it, because professionally they did. If we lost this bid, Frida Studio would close by January. I'd already maxed out our credit line and deferred my own salary for 6 months. "You sure about this?" my CFO asked, reviewing our expenses. "We're betting everything on one project." "If we play it safe, we stay small forever," I replied, though my stomach churned. "Besides, our design is revolutionary, 40% more efficient than anything Enders Development has ever built." What I didn't tell him was that I'd been perfecting this design for 3 years, the same design Marcus had dismissed as too ambitious when I'd shared it with him in 2021. He'd taken my concepts for his waterfront project, but ignored the bigger vision. Now that vision would either launch us into the stratosphere or destroy everything I'd built. Emma watched me work late into the nights, bringing me tea and sitting quietly with her homework. "You're going to win, Mom," she said one evening. "How do you know?" "Because you actually care about the people who'll work there. Grandpa and Uncle Marcus just care about square footage and profit margins." She paused. "I've seen their proposals, on the tablet." I stopped typing. "Emma, you shouldn't. Their designs are boring, Mom. Yours make people want to go to work." She gathered her books. "Just promise me something. When you win, don't let them take credit this time." The weight of her words settled on my shoulders. This wasn't just about money or recognition anymore. It was about showing my daughter that truth and talent could triumph over connections and theft. November 28th arrived gray and drizzling, typical Seattle Thanksgiving weather. I sat in my car outside my father's Mercer Island estate, watching Emma fidget with her phone in the passenger seat. "We don't have to go in," I said. "Yes, we do." Emma straightened her dress. "Besides, Uncle Marcus invited those two investors from Portland. It's going to be interesting." 6 p.m. sharp, we entered the marble foyer where 32 family members had already gathered, champagne flutes in hand. The house smelled of turkey and my father's expensive cigars. Marcus stood by the fireplace, holding court with Dad's business partners, his voice carrying across the room. "The Morrison Tech campus will revolutionize Seattle's skyline," he was saying. "My team's been working on something special for months." My blood chilled. I moved closer, Emma trailing behind. Marcus was holding up architectural renderings on his tablet. My renderings. The ones I'd created in 2021. The preliminary designs I'd shared with him before I knew better. He'd modified them slightly, changed some colors, added his firm's logo, but the bones were mine. "Stunning work, Marcus," Robert boomed, clapping his son's shoulder. "This is why Ender's development leads the industry. Innovation runs in our blood." Sarah, Marcus's wife, preened beside him. Marcus barely slept for weeks perfecting these. Such dedication. I stood frozen as relatives gathered around, praising Marcus's genius. 3 years of my work, my vision, being paraded as his triumph. Emma's hand found mine, squeezing tight. "Mom," she whispered, but I saw her other hand slip into her pocket, pulling out her grandfather's tablet that she'd somehow already acquired. The recording light was on. Marcus's eyes found mine across the room. He smiled, that same smile from every time before. The smile that said, "What are you going to do about it?" Marcus approached with a folder, his smile widening. "Frida, perfect timing. I need you to sign something." The room's chatter continued, but I felt several eyes turn our way. He opened the folder, revealing a consultation confirmation form, a document stating I'd provided minor input on the Morrison Tech campus design as a family favor. "Just a formality," Marcus said smoothly, "for the files." I looked at the document, then at him. "No." The single word cut through nearby conversations. Marcus's smile faltered. "Come on, don't be difficult. It's Thanksgiving." "I won't sign this." Robert's attention swiveled to us like a hawk spotting prey. He strode over, his presence immediately commanding the space. "What's the problem here?" "Frida's being stubborn," Marcus said. "I just need her signature on a consultation form." "These are my designs," I said quietly but clearly. "From 2021, I have the original files." The room went silent. 32 faces turned toward our corner. Robert's expression darkened. "Don't be ridiculous," he said. "Marcus has been working on this for months." 3 years, actually, I replied. "Since I first created them." Sarah laughed, sharp and dismissive. "This is embarrassing, Frida. We all know you help out sometimes, but taking credit for Marcus's work?" "Sign the form," Robert commanded, his voice dropping to that tone I'd feared since childhood. "Support your brother. That's what family does." "Family doesn't steal," Emma said suddenly, her young voice cutting through the tension. Everyone turned to stare at my 12-year-old daughter, who stood with her grandfather's tablet clutched in her hands. Emma, stay out of this, Robert warned. But Emma's fingers were already moving across the screen, and I realized with a start that she wasn't just recording, she was accessing something else entirely. You ungrateful failure! Robert's voice exploded through the room. After everything this family has done for you! He stood up, his 6-foot frame towering over me. You live in your brother's shadow because that's where you belong. Marcus built an empire while you played with your little sketches. They're not sketches, I said, my voice shaking but determined. They're registered designs, my designs. You will sign that document, Robert stepped closer, his face red with rage, or you're no longer welcome in this house. Then I'm no longer welcome. The slap came fast and hard. His palm connected with my cheek with a crack that echoed off the marble walls. The force knocked me sideways, and I grabbed the table to keep from falling. Gasps erupted around the room. Someone dropped a glass. My cheek burned, tears springing to my eyes not from pain, but from the sheer humiliation of being struck like a child in front of everyone. Cousins, aunts, uncles, my daughter, even Marcus's business partners from Portland. Get out, Robert said coldly. Get out of my house until you learn respect. Sarah smirked. Marcus looked away. Not one person in that room of 32 relatives said a word in my defense. I straightened, touched my burning cheek, and looked my father in the eye. I'm done learning your version of respect. I picked up my purse and walked toward the door, my heels clicking on marble. Emma followed, but not before she stopped beside her grandfather. I got everything, Grandpa, she said quietly, holding up his tablet. Everything. Robert's face went white, but I was already pulling Emma out the door. In the car, she whispered, Mom, I have 3 years of emails between Uncle Marcus and Grandpa, every stolen design, every lie. The next morning, November 29th, at 8 a.m., my phone buzzed with an email that made my hands shake. David Morrison himself, not an assistant or HR department. Dear Frida, congratulations. After extensive review, Frida Studio has been selected as the lead architectural firm for the Morrison Tech campus. The board was unanimous. Your vision surpasses anything we've seen. I read it 3 times before it sank in. We'd won. $45 million. The contract was attached. 23 pages of legal language that essentially said Frida Studio would have exclusive rights, no subcontracting to competitors, and most importantly, a signing ceremony on December 19th at the Seattle Convention Center. Page 18 made me stop breathing. Under rejected proposals, Ender's Development Group was specifically listed as failed to meet basic innovation requirements. My phone rang. David Morrison's personal line. Frida, wonderful work. We need to discuss something privately before the announcement. His tone shifted, becoming more serious. We've had some concerns raised about Ender's Development's business practices. Several former employees have reached out with troubling claims about intellectual property theft. My stomach tightened. I see. We take integrity seriously at Morrison Tech. I wanted you to know that we investigated thoroughly. Your designs were clearly superior, but more importantly, they were authentically yours. The metadata proves it. He paused. I also want to personally invite your father to attend the announcement as a local business leader. I think it's important he sees what real innovation looks like. After we hung up, Emma appeared in my doorway. Did we win? We won. She smiled, that wise beyond her years smile. Good, because I just finished organizing Grandpa's files. You're going to want to see what Uncle Marcus sent to Morrison Tech. It's almost word for word your 2021 proposal. The 3 weeks between winning and the announcement became a strategic chess game. Morrison's team coordinated every detail of the December 19th event. 500 invited guests, including tech CEOs, venture capitalists, city officials, and significantly, prominent local business leaders, like Robert Enders. Your father RSVP'd immediately, Morrison's assistant told me. He seemed very eager to attend. Of course he was. Robert never missed a chance to network with tech money. He had no idea I was the architect being announced. Emma spent those weeks with a focus that amazed me. "Mom, I need to show you something." She'd converted my home office into what looked like a legal war room. Printed emails, timestamp logs, file histories, all organized chronologically. "This is from 2019, she pointed to one email. "Uncle Marcus to Grandpa. Frida helped with the library design. Should we credit her?" Grandpa's response: "No need to complicate things. Keep it in-house." "Emma, how did you—" Grandpa's tablet auto-syncs everything to the cloud. He gave me the password last year to download games. She pulled out a USB drive. Every stolen design, every email taking credit, 3 years of evidence. All legally obtained because he gave me permission to use his device. She'd even created a presentation, professional, clean, devastating. "Just in case you need it," she said. December 18th, Morrison called again. "Frida, would you mind if your daughter joined you on stage tomorrow? My wife heard about her from my assistant. Apparently, she's quite remarkable. We love highlighting young women in STEM." I looked at Emma, who was pretending to do homework while obviously eavesdropping. "I think she'd love that." "Perfect. Oh, and your father confirmed he'll be in the VIP section, front row center." Emma and I exchanged glances. The pieces were all in place. Can you imagine the look on my father's face when he realizes what's about to happen? If you've ever dreamed of the moment when someone who underestimated you finally sees your true worth, please hit that like button. And comment below, what would you do in my situation? Would you reveal everything or stay silent? Now, here comes the moment everything changed. December 19th, 2 p.m. The Seattle Convention Center's grand ballroom gleamed with Morrison Tech's signature blue and silver. 500 chairs faced a massive stage where 3 screens displayed the Morrison logo. Tech executives filled the room, their combined net worth probably exceeding Washington State's budget. From backstage, I watched Robert enter with Marcus and Sarah. My father worked the room like he owned it, shaking hands with CEOs, laughing at their jokes, positioning himself perfectly in the front row VIP section. Marcus sat beside him, adjusting his tie and checking his phone. Sarah was already taking selfies. "Your dad looks confident," David Morrison observed, appearing beside me. "He's been telling everyone that Ender's Development has a major announcement coming." "Does he?" Morrison smiled. "Not that I'm aware of." He glanced at Emma, who stood nearby in a navy dress, tablet in hand. "Your daughter asked if she could connect her device to our presentation system. My tech team cleared it. Smart kid." "Terrifyingly smart," I agreed. Sailai. The lights dimmed. Morrison took the stage to thunderous applause. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the future of sustainable tech architecture." He began with vision statements and sustainability goals. I saw Robert nodding along, playing the part of the engaged civic leader. Marcus whispered something to Sarah, who laughed. "We reviewed 47 proposals," Morrison continued, "from established firms like AECOM, Stellar, and yes, Ender's Development Group." Robert straightened, a small smile playing on his lips. Several people glanced at him with interest. But one proposal stood out. One firm understood that buildings aren't just structures, they're ecosystems for human potential. Marcus leaned forward. Sarah prepared her phone for photos. Robert adjusted his jacket. They had no idea their world was about to shatter. Morrison continued his presentation, each word building toward the reveal. The selection process was rigorous. We evaluated innovation, sustainability, and most importantly, integrity. Ender's Development Group, he said, and Robert visibly preened, submitted a proposal that was familiar. Too familiar, actually. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Robert's smile flickered but held. In fact, several designs seemed to be iterations of work we'd seen before, recycled concepts, borrowed innovations. Morrison clicked his remote, and one of Marcus's designs appeared on screen. Competent, but lacking originality. I watched my brother's face drain of color. He recognized the criticism. It was the same feedback I'd given him 3 years ago on that exact design. However, Morrison's voice rose. One firm presented something revolutionary, a complete reimagining of how workspace and human needs intersect. Robert whispered to a CEO beside him, loud enough for nearby rows to hear. My company always pushes boundaries. We set the standard in Seattle. The CEO nodded politely. Others turned to look at Robert with newfound interest, assuming he was about to be announced. Marcus pulled out his phone, probably checking if any announcement had leaked. Sarah straightened her hair, preparing for her moment in the spotlight. This firm, Morrison said, is led by someone who understands that true innovation comes from authentic vision, not borrowed ideas. That's the Enders way, Robert said to another VIP, just loudly enough to be heard. Innovation runs in our blood. Emma stepped closer to me backstage. Should I get ready? Wait for it, I whispered. Morrison clicked his remote again. My design filled all 3 screens, the real one, not Marcus's bastardized version. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the lead architect for the Morrison Tech campus. Robert was already starting to stand, his hand moving to button his jacket. Frida Enders, CEO and principal architect of Frida Studio. The spotlight hit me as I walked onto the stage. 500 faces turned, cameras flashed, and in the front row, my father shot to his feet, not in applause but in shock, his face cycling from confusion to recognition to rage in the span of 3 seconds. Marcus's champagne glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the floor. Sarah's phone, raised for a triumphant photo, slowly lowered as her mouth fell open. The applause was thunderous, but I only heard the silence from my family's section. Robert stood frozen, his half-risen position making him look absurd as everyone else remained seated and clapping. Thank you, David, I said into the microphone, my voice steady and clear through the sound system. This project represents everything I believe architecture should be: sustainable, human-centered, and honest. Robert sank back into his chair like someone had cut his strings. Several VIPs glanced at him with confusion, then recognition. Wasn't she his daughter? The one from Enders Development? Emma walked onto the stage beside me, poised and confident, carrying her grandfather's tablet. Morrison smiled and gestured for her to join us. Before we discuss the project, I continued, I want to thank my daughter Emma, whose unwavering support and remarkable insight made this possible. Emma stepped to the microphone they'd set up for her. She looked directly at Robert, then at the audience. My grandfather once told me that success requires taking credit for excellence, wherever you find it, she said clearly. But my mom taught me that real success comes from creating your own excellence. She connected the tablet to the presentation system with practiced ease. I think everyone here should know the truth about where excellence really comes from. I took control of the presentation, clicking through my first 5 slides. The massive screens displayed my vision in stunning detail. Solar panel integration that looked like art, workspace pods that could reconfigure based on team needs, gardens that cleaned the air while providing meditation spaces. Frida Studio's design achieves 90% energy efficiency, Morrison announced from beside me. That's 30% better than any competitor, including Enders Development Group, which came in at 60%. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Industry professionals leaned forward, studying the numbers. The budget optimization is even more impressive, I continued, showing the cost breakdown. We're delivering this project 15% under competitive bids while exceeding every sustainability metric. To put this in perspective, Morrison added, his voice carrying clearly, Enders Development's proposal would have cost $18 million more and taken 8 months longer. Their design scored last in our innovation index, dead last. Robert's face had gone from red to white. Marcus slumped in his chair. Several VIPs who'd been chatting with Robert earlier now shifted away, creating subtle distance. Our timeline shows completion 2 months ahead of schedule, I explained, clicking to the next slide. This is possible because we're not recycling old ideas or retrofitting borrowed concepts. Every element was designed specifically for Morrison Tech's unique needs. A venture capitalist in the third row raised his hand. How long has Frida Studio been developing this design? The core concepts? 3 years, I replied, looking directly at Marcus. Though certain elements were prematurely shared with others who tried to claim them as their own. Emma stepped forward slightly, her finger hovering over the tablet screen. The threat was subtle but clear. Morrison smiled. This is why we chose Frida. Authenticity and innovation can't be faked or stolen. Emma stepped to the microphone, her young voice cutting through the murmurs. Mr. Morrison, may I share something important? Morrison nodded, intrigued. The audience quieted, charmed by the 12-year-old's poise. 3 weeks ago, my grandfather slapped my mother at Thanksgiving dinner, Emma said clearly. 500 people gasped, because she wouldn't sign away credit for her own work. She touched the tablet, and suddenly the main screen filled with video, crystal clear, audio perfect. There was Robert, his face twisted in rage. There was his hand, striking my face. The sound of the slap echoed through the convention center. You ungrateful failure! Robert's recorded voice boomed through the speakers. The video continued for 30 seconds, the humiliation, the silence of family members, my dignified exit. When it ended, the ballroom was tomb silent. Emma looked directly at her grandfather. But that's not all. She swiped again. These are emails between my grandfather and Uncle Marcus, 3 years of them. The screen filled with email after email. Frida helped with the library design. Should we credit her? No need to complicate things. Use Frida's waterfront concepts, but file them under your name. She won't complain. She never does. Then Emma spoke the 5 words that destroyed everything. Grandpa stole Mom's designs repeatedly. The final slide showed side-by-side comparisons, my original files with timestamps and metadata next to Marcus's submissions to Morrison Tech. Identical down to measurements, with only colors and logos changed. Robert tried to stand, to leave, but the crowd pressed in. Security guards responding to Morrison's subtle signal positioned themselves by the exits, not blocking anyone, just observing. Mr. Morrison, Emma said calmly, you said integrity matters. This is what integrity looks like, telling the truth even when family is involved. Emma's presentation continued with surgical precision. She pulled up file properties, showing creation dates from my computer, 2019, 2021, 2023. Then Marcus's versions, always weeks or months later, with my original measurements and specifications barely disguised. This email is particularly interesting, Emma said, displaying a message from Marcus to Morrison Tech's selection committee. My innovative eco-building design, developed over 3 years of research, she swiped. Here's Mom's original file, dated 3 years and 4 months ago. Notice the file name, FE Eco Design Original V1. A tech CEO in the audience stood up. This is intellectual property theft. Documented, premeditated theft. Morrison nodded gravely. We suspected as much when we reviewed the proposals. The Enders development submission felt derivative because it was. Stolen goods never shine as bright as the original. Robert finally found his voice. This is a family matter. You can't. Actually, we can, Morrison interrupted. When you submit fraudulent proposals to my company, it becomes my business. When you trade on your reputation while stealing from your own daughter, it becomes everyone's business. The cameras were all focused on Robert now. Every tech journalist in Seattle was typing furiously on their phones. Someone was already live streaming. Emma added one final slide, a compilation of awards and recognition Marcus had received for my designs. 7 awards, 12 featured articles, approximately $32 million in contracts, all based on stolen work. She looked at the audience. My mother never wanted this to be public. She just wanted to build beautiful, sustainable spaces. But sometimes, staying silent protects the wrong people. Marcus tried to speak. This is taken out of context. The context, Morrison said coldly, is on the screen. Your own emails, Mr. Enders. Your own words. Morrison turned to face the audience, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd just made a $45 million decision. Effective immediately, Enders Development Group is banned from all Morrison Tech projects, current and future. We do not work with thieves. Robert's phone began ringing incessantly. He fumbled to silence it, but it kept lighting up. Call after call after call. 3 CEOs who'd been sitting near Robert stood and walked away without a word. One stopped beside me on stage. Ms. Enders, I'd like to discuss our new headquarters when you have time. We need someone with proven integrity. Morrison returned to the podium. Let's proceed with why we're really here. Frida, would you do us the honor of signing the contract? The contract signing table was brought on stage. $45 million, 6 months to change Seattle's skyline. As I signed, the cameras captured everything. Robert's devastation, Marcus's panic, Sarah frantically deleting her social media posts from her phone. Security, Morrison said quietly. Please escort the Enders Development representatives out. They're disrupting our event. 2 guards approached Robert and Marcus. Not roughly, but firmly. The walk of shame through 500 of Seattle's most influential people. Someone started slow clapping. Others joined. Not for Robert's exit, for me. Emma handed the tablet to Morrison. The full documentation is here, Mr. Morrison. Every theft, every lie, every timestamp, in case anyone questions Mom's integrity again. Morrison took it solemnly. This will be kept as evidence. Fraud is a serious matter. As security led them out, Robert turned back once. Our eyes met across the ballroom. For the first time in my life, I saw fear in his eyes. Real fear. The empire he'd built on others' backs was crumbling, and everyone was watching it fall. The moment the ceremony ended, I was surrounded. 5 tech CEOs formed a line, each with a business card and a project proposal. Frida, I'm Jennifer Walsh from Cascade Systems. We have a 40 million campus project. After what I just witnessed, you're the only architect I trust for it. Brad Coleman, Vertex AI, 60 million for our Portland expansion. We need someone who builds with conscience. By the time I collected all the cards, I was looking at potential contracts worth 120 million. My project manager, who'd attended the event, stood slack-jawed beside me. Frida, this is 3 years of work, maybe 4. My phone buzzed. A text from my publicist. Hatch Justice. For Frida, trending #1 in Seattle, #3 nationally, 17 interview requests in the last hour. Emma stood beside Morrison, showing him something else on the tablet. He nodded thoughtfully, then approached me. Your daughter just showed me her coding work. She built a program to track and timestamp the document theft at 12 years old. He smiled. I'm creating a youth innovation program. Emma would be our first participant, full scholarship through high school and a guaranteed internship. I also want to learn architecture, Emma told him. Like Mom, but with better boundaries from the start. The Seattle Times business reporter approached. Ms. Enders, can you comment on the implications for Enders Development? I can only speak for Frida Studio, I replied carefully. We're focused on building a sustainable future, not dwelling on the past. But my phone showed the immediate impact. Enders Development stock had dropped 18% in after-hours trading. A news alert popped up. Emergency board meeting called at Enders Development following fraud allegations. The future was being rewritten in real time, and for once, I was the author. Back at our Belltown office, my team had decorated with champagne and a massive banner, Frida Studio, Building the Future. 25 people who'd believed in me when I had nothing but sketches and dreams. I have an announcement, I said, raising my glass. The Morrison contract includes a performance bonus structure, $2 million, which will be distributed equally among all of you. The cheers could probably be heard in Portland. My lead architect started crying. My youngest designer, who'd been living on ramen to pay student loans, sat down heavily. We're also moving, I continued. Morrison offered us premium space in Morrison Tower, floor 32, views of the Sound. That's above Ender's Development's satellite office, someone pointed out. Is it? I smiled. I hadn't noticed. Emma sat in the corner, finally looking like the 12-year-old she was, exhausted but glowing. Mom, you don't have to hide anymore. I never wanted to hide, I told her. I just thought keeping peace was more important than claiming my place. And now? Now I know that when you don't claim your place, someone else will steal it and sell it back to you at a premium. My phone showed 53 missed calls from various family members. I deleted them all without listening, but one text made me pause, from my grandmother Eleanor. Your mother would be so proud. She always said you had the talent, you just needed to find your voice. Emma curled up against me. Was it worth it, losing them? I thought about 32 silent relatives, about 15 years of stolen credit, about that slap that still echoed in my memory. I didn't lose them, Em. I freed us. December 20th brought the avalanche. I woke to find Ender's Development stock down 30% in pre-market trading. The Seattle Times headline, Ender's Empire Crumbles Amid Fraud Scandal. My lawyer called at 7 a.m. The board held an emergency meeting at midnight. Robert's been asked to step down. Marcus is suspended pending investigation. That was fast. $400 million in market value vanished overnight. Board members are panicking. 3 major investors pulled out. He paused. There's more. Sarah Enders filed for separation this morning. Apparently, she's claiming she had no knowledge of the fraud and wants to distance herself from the scandal. The irony was delicious. Sarah, who'd stood smirking while Robert slapped me, now playing victim. By noon, the full scope emerged. The investigation revealed Marcus hadn't just stolen from me. 3 other junior architects at Ender's Development had filed complaints over the years, all buried by HR. The pattern went back 7 years. It's systematic, the investigator told reporters. This wasn't a family dispute. This was corporate theft culture starting at the top. My phone rang. Marcus. Frida, please. You have to make a statement. Say it was a misunderstanding. Dad's having chest pains. The stress. The truth isn't causing his chest pains, Marcus. His choices are. We're family. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't stand silent during abuse. Family doesn't require signatures to maintain lies. You've destroyed everything. Destroyed. No, Marcus. I revealed everything. You destroyed it years ago when you put your name on my first design. I hung up. Within an hour, a news alert appeared. Marcus Enders under investigation for 7 years of intellectual property theft. The empire hadn't just crumbled. It had been built on sand, and the tide of truth had finally come in. The media storm was unlike anything I'd imagined. CNN Business ran a segment titled, The Thanksgiving Slap Heard Round the Business World. Forbes published How Frida Enders Built an Empire While Her Family Stole Her Blueprints. My publicist called, breathless. 15 major outlets want exclusive interviews. 60 Minutes, Anderson Cooper, The Wall Street Journal. Netflix just offered a documentary deal. Stolen Blueprints, The Frida Enders Story. And Penguin Random House? They're offering a mid-6-figure advance for your book, Building Truth, An Architect's Guide to Standing Your Ground. The numbers were staggering, but what struck me most were the messages. My website had crashed from 2 million visits in 48 hours. Hundreds of emails from other professionals, architects, designers, engineers, sharing their own stories of stolen credit. You gave us permission to speak up, one wrote. My boss has been taking credit for 5 years. I'm meeting with HR tomorrow. The Forbes article was particularly satisfying. Frida Enders represents a new generation of leaders who refuse to enable toxic family businesses. Her studio's valuation has increased tenfold overnight, while Ender's development faces potential bankruptcy. Emma showed me her phone. Mom, you're trending on TikTok. Gen Z is calling you the blueprint boss and making videos about standing up to toxic families. Morrison called personally. The press is incredible, but I want you to know, we chose you for your talent, not the drama. Although, he chuckled, watching Robert Enders get escorted out by security is already legendary in tech circles. Any regrets about the public nature? He asked. Only that it took me 15 years to stop protecting the wrong people. Well, your protection days are over. Focus on building. Let the lawyers handle the wreckage. The family WhatsApp group exploded like a digital war zone. I watched the messages pile up without responding. Aunt Patricia. Frida, we need to talk. I always suspected something was off with Marcus's sudden success. Uncle James. This should have been handled privately. Airing family business like this is shameful. Cousin Derek. Actually, Uncle James, covering up theft is shameful. Team Frida here. The group split into factions. Half thought I'd gone too far. The other half admitted they'd witnessed similar behavior, but stayed quiet. Then came the revelation that shifted everything. Cousin Marie. Since we're being honest, Robert fired me from Ender's Development in 2018 when I refused to hand over my client list to Marcus. Said I wasn't a team player. 3 more relatives shared similar stories, pattern after pattern of Robert and Marcus taking credit, pushing out anyone who resisted. Then, unexpectedly, Grandma Eleanor joined the chat, a woman who'd never sent a text in her life. I taught my son better than this. Frida, your mother would be proud. She left the family business for similar reasons, though she never told you. Robert crushed her interior design firm by poaching her clients. Some patterns repeat until someone breaks them. The chat went silent. My mother had died when I was 15, and I'd never known she'd had her own business, her own dreams that Robert had destroyed. Uncle James left the group. Marcus had already removed himself. Sarah posted once, "This is all lies," before also leaving. But 12 relatives reached out privately, sharing stories, offering support. The family was fracturing, but maybe it needed to. Maybe the healthy parts needed to separate from the rot. Some trees need pruning to grow, Grandma Eleanor texted me privately. You just cut away 30 years of disease. December 22nd, Robert made his move. His lawyer, Harrison Pike from Seattle's most expensive firm, sent a formal letter offering $10 million for a public statement, clarifying the misunderstanding at the Morrison Tech event. My lawyer laughed when he read it. He's desperate. This is admission of guilt, wrapped in legal paper. The letter went on to threaten a defamation suit, claiming emotional distress and damage to business reputation. But the evidence was ironclad. Emails, timestamps, video, all legally obtained. Then came the emotional manipulation. Robert sent a personal email. Frida, you've destroyed our family legacy. Your mother would be ashamed. Everything I built was for you and Marcus. Now you've left me with nothing but shame and debt. My health is failing. Is your revenge worth your father's life? Emma read it over my shoulder. Wow, he's really going for the guilt grand slam, isn't he? Don't respond, my lawyer advised. Let me handle it. His response was perfect. Mr. Enders, the evidence speaks for itself. Video recordings and emails are not defamation, they're documentation. We recommend focusing on the criminal investigation rather than attempting to silence witnesses. But Robert wasn't done. He sent letters to Emma's school claiming I was an unfit mother exposing a minor to adult business matters. The school's response was swift. They'd seen the news and considered Emma a hero for standing up to abuse. The final pathetic attempt came December 23rd. Robert posted a video on the Enders Development website, sitting in his now empty office claiming he was a victim of a coordinated attack by a vindictive daughter. The video had 12,000 dislikes within an hour. The comments section had to be disabled. Someone leaked that he'd hired a PR crisis firm for $50,000 a month, money he no longer had. January 2025 arrived with opportunity knocking down my door. The contracts Jennifer Walsh and Brad Coleman had mentioned materialized into formal proposals. 12 major projects totaling over $200 million in potential revenue. "We need to expand," my CFO said, reviewing the numbers. "This is 4 years of work, minimum." "Then we expand." I signed the lease for additional floors in Morrison Tower. "We're hiring 50 more people, and I want at least half to be young architects who've been overlooked elsewhere." Frida Studio went from 25 to 75 employees in 6 weeks. We opened satellite offices in Los Angeles and New York. 3 sustainability nonprofits approached us about partnerships, wanting to use our designs as models for affordable green housing. The speaking engagement offers were overwhelming. TED Talk, architecture conferences, women in business summits. I accepted the TED Talk. Building Truth: Why Authentic Design Starts with Authentic Business. "Your story resonated globally," the TED coordinator explained. "We've had more requests for your talk than any other this year." The numbers were staggering. Our revenue projection for 2025 hit $200 million. My personal net worth, nearly nothing 6 months ago, climbed past 8 figures. But the sweetest victory was smaller. A handwritten note from a junior architect in Ohio. "I confronted my boss about stealing my designs after seeing your story. He fired me. The client hired me directly instead. Thank you for showing me it was possible." Emma pinned it to our office inspiration board, right next to our first Morrison Tech check. "Mom," she said, "remember when you used to work at the kitchen table, hoping someone would notice your talent?" Every day. Now the whole world is watching. The investigation into Marcus was thorough and devastating. By February, the full scope emerged in a leaked report that made headlines nationwide. 7 years of systematic theft, the Seattle Times announced. The investigation revealed Marcus had stolen designs not just from me, but from 3 other junior architects at Enders Development. 2 had been fired when they complained. 1 had been paid off with a non-disclosure agreement. The Architecture Registration Board launched their own investigation. Marcus's license was suspended pending review. Without it, he couldn't practice architecture anywhere in the United States. "The pattern is clear," the investigator told reporters. "Mr. Marcus Enders built his entire reputation on other people's work. Not a single major design attributed to him was actually his." The lawsuits started rolling in. Former associates wanted their credit restored and damages paid. The total claims exceeded $15 million, money Marcus didn't have. Sarah's separation turned to divorce proceedings. Court documents revealed she was claiming half of assets that were rapidly disappearing. They had to sell their Bellevue mansion at a loss. The boat went next, then the vacation home in Aspen. By March, Marcus was working as a junior CAD technician at a small firm in Portland, the only job he could get without his license. His salary, $62,000 a year. His net worth had dropped from $50 million to barely $5 million, most of it tied up in legal fees. Someone sent me a photo of him at a coffee shop, hunched over a laptop, doing the actual work he'd avoided his entire career. He looked older, grayer, smaller. "Do you feel bad for him?" Emma asked. "I feel bad for the person he could have been if he'd developed his own talents instead of stealing others." January 15th, Robert requested a meeting. After weeks of legal threats and emotional manipulation, he wanted to talk. I agreed, but only at my lawyer's office with full recording. He looked diminished. The commanding CEO who'd ruled every room was now a 70-year-old man in an ill-fitting suit, his empire gone, his reputation destroyed. "I want to reconcile," he started. "Under what terms?" "You make a statement that this was a family misunderstanding. I'll acknowledge you contributed to some designs. We rebuild together." Even now, he couldn't admit the truth. "Robert, you slapped me in front of 32 people for refusing to sign away my work." There's no misunderstanding to clarify. I'm your father. Biology doesn't grant you absolution. If you want any relationship going forward, here are my terms. Complete public acknowledgement of the theft. Genuine apology to everyone you and Marcus stole from. Family therapy with a therapist I choose. No business discussions ever. And you never, ever speak to Emma without my presence. His face reddened. Those are ridiculous demands. Those are boundaries. Take them or leave them. You're asking me to humiliate myself. I'm asking you to tell the truth. The humiliation is just how the truth feels after decades of lies. He stood abruptly. You're no daughter of mine. For the first time, we agree on something. He stormed out, slamming the door. My lawyer shook his head. He really thought you'd cave. He's been counting on me caving for 38 years. The math finally changed. Emma, who'd insisted on being in the adjacent room, hugged me. You didn't even flinch. Boundaries get easier when you realize the price of not having them. The family restructuring was swift and necessary. Some relatives chose Robert's side, clinging to the old power structure even as it crumbled. Others reached out with stories and support. I'm okay with a smaller family, I told Emma as we planned our new Thanksgiving tradition. Quality over quantity. We invited my team, their families, Morrison and his wife, and the relatives who'd supported us. 50 people who genuinely cared about each other. No power plays, no stolen credit, no silent enablers. The biggest surprise was Aunt Lisa, my mother's sister who'd been estranged for 20 years. She called in February. I left because Robert destroyed your mother's business, then mine. I should have warned you, but he threatened to ruin anyone who spoke up. We met for coffee. She brought photo albums I'd never seen, my mother at her drafting table, her interior design awards, her smile before Robert crushed her spirit. She had your talent, Lisa said, and your kindness. Robert couldn't stand that she was better than him. Emma gained an aunt who understood our journey. Lisa had built her own successful design firm in Portland after escaping Robert's influence. The family tree needed pruning, she said. You didn't break the family, Frida. You revealed it was already broken. I started a support group for professionals dealing with workplace theft and toxic family businesses. Within 2 months, we had 500 members sharing stories, strategies, and strength. Our real family got smaller but stronger, Emma observed at our March gathering. 20 people who'd chosen truth over comfort, integrity over inheritance. Sometimes, I told the group, losing your biological family means finding your logical one, the people who make sense in your life. February 2025 brought the groundbreaking ceremony for Morrison Tech campus. Despite the winter drizzle, 300 people attended, including city officials and tech luminaries. Robert was notably absent from the guest list. This campus represents the future, Morrison said at the podium. Designed by someone who understands that integrity in business starts with integrity in design. We were ahead of schedule and under budget. The sustainable design had already won 3 awards before a single brick was laid. The American Institute of Architects featured it as Design of the Year. The first building will be complete in 4 months, I announced. The entire campus in 18 months. Every milestone met, every promise kept. Emma's Youth Innovation Program launched the same day with 50 students. She stood beside Morrison, explaining how young people could contribute to sustainable architecture. My mom taught me that buildings aren't just structures, Emma said. They're promises we make to the future, and promises matter. The contrast to Ender's development was stark. While we broke ground on the future, Robert's former company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The building that once bore his name was being renamed. My team worked with passion I'd never seen before. We're not just building for Morrison, my lead architect said. We're proving that good design comes from good people. The first building's frame went up in record time. Morrison visited weekly, always impressed. This is what happens when talent isn't suppressed, he told me. Imagine if you'd been able to do this 15 years ago. Then I wouldn't have learned the importance of boundaries, I replied. Every building needs a strong foundation. So does every life. By March, we were 2 months ahead of schedule. The architecture world was watching, and we were delivering. March brought an unexpected call. Aunt Lisa wanted to introduce me to others who'd fled Robert's toxicity over the years. The list was longer than I'd imagined. There are 12 of us, she explained. Cousins, aunts, former family friends. We call ourselves the Enders Exodus. We met at Lisa's Portland home. Each person had a story. Businesses Robert had sabotaged, credit he'd stolen, relationships he'd destroyed when people wouldn't submit to his control. Your mother was the first to leave, Lisa revealed. She tried to start her own firm 3 times. Robert destroyed each one, poached clients, spread rumors, threatened partners. Cousin Michael, whom I hadn't seen since I was 10, shared his story. I developed a new construction technique in 2008. Robert patented it under Ender's development. When I protested, he had me blacklisted in Seattle. These weren't just relatives, they were refugees from Robert's empire. Successful ones, who'd rebuilt elsewhere, but carrying scars. You did what none of us could, Michael said. You exposed him publicly. We all left quietly, thinking we were protecting the family. Silence protected him, not the family, Emma said, wise beyond her years. We formed a new network, not based on blood or obligation, but on shared understanding and mutual support. The Enders Exodus became our chosen family, gathering monthly, supporting each other's businesses, celebrating successes Robert would have stolen. I wish your mother could see this, Lisa said, showing me a photo of my mom at 25, holding baby me, standing in front of her first office. She'd be so proud that you succeeded where she couldn't. She did succeed, I realized. She had me, and she made sure I was strong enough to finish what she started. April 2025 marked the complete collapse of the Enders empire. The bankruptcy court's final ruling was devastating. Enders Development's assets liquidated, the downtown tower sold to Morrison Tech, ironic justice, and Robert's personal assets seized to pay creditors. The Mercer Island estate went for auction. A tech entrepreneur bought it, planning to demolish Robert's monument to himself and build affordable housing for young professionals. The Seattle Times ran a photo of Robert watching from his car as the sold sign went up. He'd moved to a 1-bedroom condo in Tacoma, his fortune reduced to Social Security, and a small pension the court couldn't touch. From commanding 4,000 employees to living alone in 600 square feet, Marcus wasn't faring better. Still working as a CAD technician in Portland, his applications to other firms consistently rejected. The architecture community has a long memory, and his name was poison. Enders Development final day, the business section announced. The company that had dominated Seattle construction for 30 years dissolved completely. Former employees shared stories of toxic culture, stolen ideas, and crushed dreams. One former architect messaged me. I worked there for 10 years. Watching it fall was like watching my trauma get external validation. Thank you. I felt no satisfaction, just a distant sadness for the waste. All that energy Robert had put into stealing and controlling could have built something real. All Marcus's efforts to avoid hard work had resulted in the hardest fall possible. Do you ever think about visiting him? Emma asked. No. He knows my terms for reconciliation. He's chosen pride over family, just like he always has. The empire built on stolen blueprints had returned to dust. The only things left standing were the truths we'd finally told. Emma's transformation from quiet observer to confident advocate was remarkable. In May, she won a national essay contest with her piece, Standing in Truth, Why Silence Never Protects the Right People. The prize was $25,000 for college and a speaking slot at the National Youth Leadership Conference. At 13, she commanded the stage like someone twice her age. Adults always tell kids to respect their elders, she began. But what happens when your elders don't respect truth? What happens when staying quiet means enabling theft? Her speech went viral. 3 million views in a week. Messages poured in from teenagers dealing with toxic family situations, thanking her for showing them it was okay to speak up. She started a nonprofit called Truth Voices for teens facing family corruption or abuse. Using her prize money as seed funding, she created a platform where young people could share stories and find support. 10,000 followers in 3 months, she told me proudly. And we've helped 12 kids find legal help for family financial abuse. Morrison became her unofficial mentor, teaching her about business ethics and sustainable development. Your daughter has CEO potential, he told me, but more importantly, she has integrity potential. Emma's school invited her to speak at graduation. The girl who'd once sat silently while her uncle stole her mother's work now stood before 500 people, teaching them about courage. My mom worked in shadows for 15 years because she thought keeping peace was noble, Emma said. But I learned that peace without justice isn't peace. It's just quiet oppression, and I refuse to be quiet. The principal told me afterward, Emma's changed our school's entire culture around speaking up. She's proof that one voice can start an avalanche. November 2025. A new Thanksgiving tradition at the Morrison Tech campus's completed first building, a gorgeous space with soaring windows and living walls, exactly as I'd envisioned years ago. 75 Frida Studio employees and their families gathered in the atrium I'd designed for exactly this purpose: community, celebration, and genuine gratitude. Morrison attended as our honorary guest, bringing his family and closest executives. A toast, Morrison raised his glass, to families we choose, success we earn, and truth we honor. No one mentioned the past. We didn't need to. The present was proof enough. My firm thriving with 180 million in revenue our first full year, Emma's program inspiring young architects nationwide, and relationships built on respect rather than fear. Last Thanksgiving, I got slapped for refusing to lie, I said during my toast. This Thanksgiving, I'm surrounded by people who value truth. That's the only success that matters. Marcus sent a text that day, the first communication in months. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm sorry. I didn't respond. Apologies without accountability are just noise. Robert sent nothing. According to Aunt Lisa, he spent the day alone in his Tacoma condo, refusing invitations from the few relatives who still spoke to him. It's sad, Emma said, looking at the happy crowd around us. He could have been here if he'd just admitted the truth. Some people would rather lose everything than admit they were wrong, I replied. That's their choice. This is ours. As the sun set through the sustainable glass I'd specified, casting rainbow patterns on the gathered families, I realized something. Success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about finally proving yourself right. The blueprint for happiness was simple. Build with integrity, and integrity will build you. Looking back now, the slap that changed everything wasn't just about physical violence. It was the moment 15 years of silent theft became visible, undeniable, recorded for the world to see. The lesson is simple but powerful. Document everything. Trust your instincts when someone consistently takes credit for your work. Your worth isn't determined by family validation or their willingness to acknowledge your contributions. Emma and I are closer than ever. She's applying to MIT's architecture program with a perfect GPA and a portfolio that includes her work on the Morrison campus. I want to build like you, she says, but with boundaries from day one. Frida Studio hit 180 million in revenue our first year as a major firm. We employ 90 architects who all know their names will appear on their work. No theft, no silence, no slaps. Robert still lives alone in Tacoma. Marcus still works as a technician. Sarah remarried and pretends the Enders years never happened. The family WhatsApp group disbanded. The Mercer Island estate is now affordable housing. But the Enders exodus thrives. 12 became 30 as more people felt safe to share their stories. We meet quarterly, supporting each other's businesses, celebrating successes that no one can steal. The price of truth was high. I lost the family I was born into. But the reward was higher. I gained a family that chose me, a business built on integrity, and a daughter who knows her worth isn't negotiable. Sometimes losing everything you thought mattered helps you find everything that actually does. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear that their truth matters. Have you ever had to choose between family harmony and your own dignity? Share your story in the comments. You're not alone. And remember, Emma's courage came from watching me finally stand up. What example are you setting? Thank you for listening to our journey.